So we're in a new series for the summer, and it's called These Three. You can see our new art up there. It's called These Three, and it's taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13. Now in your bulletins, there's a blank page where you can scribble down some notes and follow along. But 1 Corinthians 13:13, it says, "And now abide faith, hope, and love, these three. But the greatest of these is love." And that's where we get the title, These Three: faith, hope, and love. And last week we talked about faith, and we're going to talk about faith tonight. Today, let's just take a real quick review of where we went last week talking about faith. We talked about 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. 2 Corinthians 5:7. It says, "We walk by faith, not by sight." And we asked the question, what does it mean to walk by faith? What does that mean? And we just had a couple thoughts on that. The first one was this, is we said that faith is an action word. Faith is an action word. Thus, we walk by faith. It's a movement word. And I made the comment that I feel far too many Christians have somehow thought of faith as passive. Maybe it's the idea of I'm waiting on the Lord or something like that has gotten into our heads. But actually, throughout Scripture, most of the time when you see discussions of faith, it involves some sort of action. Faith is an action word. It means trusting in God's revealed word. We talked about how faith isn't a blind leap. I know some of you guys have seen the Indiana Jones movie, where he's looking over that giant crevasse there, and he has to step out over the edge to get across in a leap of faith. And that makes for a great Hollywood movie and everything, but it's not necessarily what biblical faith is. Because with biblical faith, it's not a blind leap. I know whom I have trusted. See, I'm going to get you going here. I know who I've trusted in. It's not blind. Now, I may not know every step of the way exactly the direction, but I know the one who's leading me. And I trust in His character and His goodness and His will. So faith is an action word, but it's not a blind leap of faith. Does that make sense, church? The second thing, very quickly, we talked about last week, is that faith is rooted in obeying or obedience to God's Word. Faith is about God's Word. We understand what His Word says. We know the stories. We know the doctrines. We know what He says. And so walking by faith is walking in accordance with the Word of God. Now, there's a couple ways that God speaks to us. Now, one way, of course, is through the written Word of God, the Bible. Follow what I'm saying? And He tells us in that Word how to live our lives. So, you know what? When He says, let me just give you an example. When He says in the Bible, the first 10% of your income is His, and if you give that to Him, He will bless you. I'm roughly quoting Malachi chapter 3 here. It doesn't take a huge leap of faith to understand that when you give, He will bless you. Why? Because it's written down. It's in the Word. I follow what I'm saying. See, so we obey God's Word by faith, but it's faith by what He's revealed to us. And that's such an important thing. We have to learn to listen to what God's Word says. We have to learn to live by what God's Word tells us to do. And can I say this, that faith is like a muscle. That it can atrophy if we don't extend our faith. It can grow if we use our faith more. Now, James chapter 2, we're going to put this up here, just speaking about from last week, James chapter 2, verse 14. James says this, he says, "What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but doesn't have any works?" By works, he's talking about good deeds, faithful actions. Okay? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled," but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it doesn't have works, is dead. But someone will say, "You have faith and I have works." Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God, you do well. Even demons believe and tremble. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? And it's a simple understanding. We're trying to say is faith is an action word. Faith requires action, deeds, works. It requires stepping out on what God tells you to do, and then when you got to do it. Somebody says, Pastor, my faith is weak. I say, are you exercising your faith? It's kind of like somebody might say, well, I want to get all buff. You know, I want to look fabulous. I want to look like the pastor. You know, somebody says, I want to get, in shape. But they never go to the gym. They never go for a walk. They're not exercising that at all. You follow what I'm saying? So that's what we talked about last week in a nutshell. Now, today I want to kind of close my thoughts on faith. And I want to do it by asking a question. Question about faith. And we're going to have one of those very honest mornings. What about faith? How do we live by faith when all around us seems dark? And I can't see anything. How do we live by faith when it seems like our world is just kind of crumbling all around us? How do we live by faith when something we thought we understood, something we thought would happen, doesn't happen? How do we live by faith when one of those, boomerangs comes flying out of the back and hits us in the head? Most of us have been there, haven't we? And most of us know what it's like to be in a dark, dark place. Spiritually, emotionally, maybe financially, maybe in a relationship, where it's dark. And you don't know where to go. You can't see your way. What do we do? How do we navigate through those times when it feels impossible? How do we navigate with faith when the stack of bills is, that big and the paycheck is that big? How do we navigate through those times? Because it can be scary. You can say amen for that. It can be scary. Very scary. Walking in the dark can be a scary thing. Just last week, my daughter Bethany and Josh, her boyfriend, came up, and they had never been to Mount Erie or to Fort Casey. In fact, they'd never been north of here, as far north they had gone. And so we asked them if they'd come up and spend the day, and they did. So we hopped in the car, we drove up to Mount Erie, and you can see those pictures on Facebook. It was a gorgeous day too, by the way. You could see Mount Erie, almost to China. I mean, it's just, you look at it, there's no end. It was beautiful. Then we went down to Fort Casey. How many have been to Fort Casey? I think most of you have. Good. Oh, you guys haven't? Shrams? We have. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so you got to go if you haven't gone. So they needed to see this place, so we went up there. And one of the things I was most excited to show them was the switchboard. Now, for some of you who know what I'm talking about, the switchboard is kind of out and around the corner. It's kind of not in the middle of the whole thing. But it is a dark tunnel. And what happens is you walk down the tunnel, and then you go through a door, a metal door, and it's subterranean. And it is literally the tunnel, it's concrete tunnels, bunkers under the ground, and it's this wide. I'm not kidding, it's this wide. And you come down this long hallway, you take a left, you walk along, and you can see a little light from the door. Then you take a right, and it is pitch black. So much you can't see your face, your hand in front of your face. And what makes that really fun is inside the switchboard, this tunnel, there is a kind of a room and a shelf on top, and the kids will climb up there, and they'll go boom, or they'll drop things on you as you walk past, and you can't see them. I mean, it's just black. And so we got to the switchboard, and Bethany and Josh were there, and I said, "Come on, guys, let's go down the switchboard." And Bethany, some of you guys know my daughter, she's like, "Okay, Dad, let's go." And Josh was like, "Not on your luck." He's looking down that long hall, and it's dark, and he said, "Yeah, I'm from LA, and I ain't going down there." And, Bethany said, "Come on, Dad, let's go for it." I said, "Bethany, it can be really spooky in there." She goes, "Oh, great." Because that's the way she is, And Josh is standing there. "Where's my flashlight?" "I'm not going down without a flashlight." So he stood out there, and Bethany and I went in that place. And sure enough, like, just like I told you, you go down there and make a left down this really narrow hallway, and you can kind of see a little bit, and then you take a right, because you make kind of a square, and it is pitch black. And we're walking along, and I'm in front of Beth, she's behind me. So, and I know it backwards and forward, inside out, right? So I take off like this. And I leave her. And she's like, wow, it's really dark. Dad? Dad? And I'm waiting down at the end where it kind of curls around. And it, I mean, literally, you could walk facing the wall and not see it. It was so dark. She goes, Dad, this isn't funny. You know, what do I do? And so I'm down at the end, and I finally said, just walk, Bethany. She was, walking to what, Dad? And she thinks I'm setting her up, you know. And so she keeps walking, and finally, you know, she gets to me, and I have my hands out, she gets my hands, and I take her around. So then it's Josh's turn. So we come out, and Bethany, I guess she looked white as a sheet or something. So we come out of there, so, that was really fun. And Josh is looking at her like, no, I don't think so. You know? So finally we gave him a flashlight so he could see where he was going in the dark, right? And so he went through there with the flashlight. And I share all that story just so we can understand when it is pitch dark, it is scary. Even though, you know, in this case, you know you're in an enclosed place, it's a state park. What could happen, right? I mean, it's just the darkness is scary. And there are dark times of the soul, you know, all of our lives. When even though we kind of know the way to go, it's dark. And without a light to lead the way, it's just scary. And Bethany kind of had to have faith in her dad, you know, well, other than turn around and go back the other way, I guess. She didn't have a whole lot of options other than just walk forward. Keep walking, Beth, you'll get out, you know, you'll get out. And sometimes that's what it's like for us, guys. In the midst of the darkness, you got to have faith and listen for the word, the voice of God. Listen for Him calling. Just keep going, just keep walking. And you'll come through the dark. Now, we have a scripture this morning to help us with this. It's Luke chapter 18. Luke chapter 18. If you'll turn there, Luke 18. Luke 18, starting in verse 35. Luke 18:35 and following. It says, and then it happened as he was coming near Jericho that a certain blind man sat by the road begging. And hearing a multitude passing by, he asked what it meant. So they told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And he cried out, saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Then those who went before warned him that he should be quiet. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. So Jesus stood still, and he commanded him to be brought to him. And when he had come near, he asked him, saying, what do you want me to do for you? And he said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. And Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. Now this is a little interesting story. Let's just get some context here. This is happening right on the outskirts of Jericho as Jesus is making his final trip to Jerusalem. In this story, Jesus and his followers are preparing for his final week. They're making the pilgrimage from the north down there to Jerusalem for Passover. And it would have been a very busy time on that road. It was the main road to Jerusalem. It ran through Jericho. And this beggar quite probably sat in that same place every day, begging for alms and food and different things. Now, you got to understand that in that culture, in that day, there was no safety net. There was no DSHS. There wasn't a government program that would take this guy and feed him and educate him and help him along. You might have had some kind people who would do that, and things, but the government didn't take care of folks like that. And so this guy was literally probably begging for his life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, now he may have had family that watched over him and whatnot, but when you were disabled in that culture, your options were pretty limited. And so he's sitting alongside that road, begging for alms to take care of himself. And what's interesting is that he's getting by Jericho. And in this story about faith in a dark time, what's interesting is Jericho has history. Think a little bit in your mind back to Jericho, and you should automatically be thinking about Joshua and the walls falling down. I mean, that's the story of Jericho, right? And the kids' songs about it and everything. And this city, it's interesting, as somebody who is blind and is looking for some kind of breakthrough, and this story's happening in Jericho as Jesus comes through there. And I got to tell you what, when you are blind and begging, you need a breakthrough. And there are folks here today, you feel you're in a dark time, and you need a breakthrough. You need a breakthrough as well, as this guy did. And Jericho was a place where a tremendous breakthrough had happened. So he was positioned in the right place for a miracle. So he's sitting there, and the crowd is coming along. Now, you got to understand, church, that there would have been a lot of people on that road. Anyway, it's a busy road. It's headed to Passover. People are going along. But all of a sudden, the volume level would have taken a notch up. And he would have been sitting there listening, to the crowd passing by. Because when you can't see, you got to use your other senses, right? And he would have always been listening for somebody to walk up and maybe drop a coin, or maybe somebody's going to walk up and kick him or something, right? So he's listening, and he hears the volume level come up, and he realizes there's some kind of a procession, coming down the road. And he's wondering, well, what is this? What's going on here? And as this crowd is coming along, he's asking, who is this person? What is this thing that's happening? And somebody tells him, it's Jesus of Nazareth coming along. Now, listen, guys, this is important to get. He must have heard of Jesus. Somebody must have told him about Jesus. Are you tracking what I'm saying? Because his response is, hey, son of David, have mercy. So he knew something. He wasn't, in a vacuum. So you got to wonder, who in his life had told him about the miracle-working Messiah? Somebody who maybe he's not even in the story, right, had told him about this Jesus. How this Jesus could touch him and heal him. Because remember, Jesus' miracles of healings had traveled all over the place. People all knew about these stories. And somebody must have told him there's this rabbi named Jesus who's healing people, including blind people. And so he's sitting along the road, and when he hears this is this Jesus, he starts to call out. Let me just pose a little question for you here. Just kind of what could have happened. What if somebody had not told him about Jesus? So that he just sat there. And when somebody came along and said, oh, this is just Jesus of Nazareth, if he hadn't heard of him before, what if he just sat there like a lump? And Jesus had walked right by him. And you're saying, where are you going with that? Where I'm going with that is, church, when people are in darkness, they need other folks to help point them the way. Somebody knew that Bartimaeus was blind. He needed a miracle, needed a breakthrough. And somebody had told him, this Jesus of Nazareth could be your guy. So your role in somebody else's darkness is important. Because you can be a person that sheds light and hope and direction to somebody when they can't see where they're going. There's kind of a thing where a lot of times you think, well, if somebody's going through a dark time, we should just be quiet and not say anything. Just, be quiet. Let me tell you something, guys. There is a place for an appropriate word of hope and faith. When somebody's going through a dark time, it's okay to say something full of encouragement and hope and point them to the one who can help them, right? Jesus. Somebody had done that for Bartimaeus. So he hears that it's this Jesus coming along, that this Jesus is coming down the road and begins to cry out. He cries out, Jesus, help me. Son of David, help me. Now listen, the fact that he chose those words, Son of David, means something. Son of David was a messianic proclamation. And that this is the chosen one. He's saying, Jesus, Son of David, you're the Messiah. You're the answer to my need. He wasn't just turning to some prophet or some popular figure or some famous person. He's turning to the Messiah, the Son of David. Church, can I make just kind of a broad statement here? When you're going through dark times, when things are difficult, your faith is weak, and you're wondering, what am I going to do? Here's the thing. Look to Jesus. Look to Jesus. Now, there are a lot of folks out there who would have you look to them. Psychologists, famous media folks. But the one who can really help you, it's Jesus. The one who can really meet you at your need, it's Jesus. He's the one. Not some media projected Jesus, but the real Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, the Anointed One. He's the one you run to. Can you say amen? Amen. Who is this Jesus you're calling out to? I want you to recall, who is this Jesus that Bartimaeus is calling out to in his blindness and in his poverty? It's this Jesus who was the mighty one. Say amen. Amen. He was the Alpha and the Omega. He's the bread of life. He's the bridegroom and the deliverer. He's the one who's faithful and true. He's the good shepherd. Jesus is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's the mighty one of all. When you've got issues, you don't run to the secular world. Run to Jesus. He's the one who can help you. And that's the Jesus who was passing by Bartimaeus. Now, of course, there are some folks, they're out in front of Jesus in this crowd. Maybe they're making a way, pushing people aside. Or maybe they're just the folks who like to get out in front. But they tell Bartimaeus, oh, shut up! He's yelling, have mercy on me. And they're, oh, quiet, quiet. You're going to bug Jesus. You're going to be quiet, Bartimaeus. Listen, there are people in our lives who will try to tell you to just be quiet and don't bug the Savior. Don't bug anybody, but don't listen to them. Bartimaeus didn't. They said, be quiet. He says, I'm yelling louder. I need something. I'm desperate. You're not shutting me up. He continues to cry out. Now I want you to look at Luke 18:40. There's a key point here. Luke 18:40. It says in your text, Luke 18:40, that Jesus stood still. See that? Jesus stood still. Somebody told him that there's this blind man calling out for him, and Jesus, he just stops. He stops. The whole crowd would have stopped behind him, right? Everybody stops. What in the world? He stopped. And he stands there. Now you think he could have walked over to Bartimaeus, right? He could have said, where is he? I will find him. But he just stops. Stood still. Then it goes on to say that his friends escorted Bartimaeus towards Jesus. See, Bartimaeus had a miracle about to happen. Jesus was right there waiting. But Bartimaeus had to be helped up. Somebody probably had to grab him by an arm or something, lead him through the crowd, and bring him to Jesus. It says he was near him. You know, guys, oftentimes the miracle that we're looking for is right there. But we have our little piece of this as well. I suppose Bartimaeus could have said, I ain't getting up for nothing. I got my spot right here. I ain't moving. No way, I'm not giving up my place. Who knows if he'd have gotten his healing. But he knew Jesus was nearby. He let somebody help him up, take him to Jesus. He had to get up, he had to walk, he had to be led a little bit, right? He had to stand before Jesus, take their word for it that this is who's here. You know, church, in that moment, not only did Bartimaeus have to have faith to stand up and walk over to where Jesus was, he had to let somebody else guide him. And somebody had to be the person doing the guiding. I kind of wish we had that person's name. Because somebody cared enough to run over there and say, Bartimaeus, he's waiting on you. Come on, let me help you. You know, helped him up and walked him through the crowd. You know what? Church, can we be folks like that? Who, when people are in the dark times and they need Jesus, can we be the one who can help them up and take them to Jesus? Sometimes folks, they don't know where to go. They don't know where Jesus is. They don't know how to get help from him. Right? They need somebody to take them through the dark place to where their answer is. And Jesus, of course, gave him the answer he was looking for. He got his miracle and he could see. So what do we say about that again? When going through hard times and hard places, we look to Jesus, don't we, church? In church, we are those who can help other people find their way through the dark to Jesus. But, point two, what if we do all the right things? What if you were to do all the things we've just talked about in your time of testing and trial and dark faith, and it still doesn't work? What if you believe, you trust, you do all the things, and you still don't get the answer you're looking for? And there are some who are, if they're honest, would say they've been there. To where you prayed, you believed, you did all the stuff you needed to do, and it just didn't turn out like you thought it would. And church, it happens that way sometimes. Sometimes it seems like God just didn't show up. Where was he? Other times it seems like, he didn't heal or wouldn't heal or couldn't heal or wouldn't intervene. Sometimes the check just didn't show up in the mail. And we think, what did I do wrong? I thought I did it all right, and yet it didn't work out. And we wrestle with those things. And church, you know what? Nearly all of us here in this room are grown-ups, and let me just say, we can understand that God's ways are beyond our ways.
Right. Amen.
I'll wait for another amen on that. Amen. His ways are beyond our ways. And there are times when we think we got to figure it out, right? We think, okay, I got this figured out. Here's how it's going to go. Here's how I should pray. Here's how, and it doesn't work out, and we're like, boy, God failed me. When the reality was, God's ways are so much different than our ways, and he knows so much better. Let me repeat a little story to make a point. You guys remember how I shared going into Bible school the summer before I started at Northwest. I needed a car. I needed a vehicle. And I had $500 to spend. In those days, for a used car, that wasn't a lot, but it wasn't nothing. I mean, it was something. And so I was looking through in those days you went to the yellow pages, not yellow pages, the newspaper, you went to the want ads, didn't have Google and stuff. And so I'm looking there, and my eyes fell upon a 1962 Austin Healey Mini, which is a little bitty sports car, convertible. And the guy wanted $500 for this car. And it was up in Covington, and so I said, well, there's my college car right there. And I had pictures, of me pulling up into campus with the convertible, and the big man on campus thing and all that. So I went out to Covington to look at this little, Austin Mini. And I got there, and this thing was a mess. It was rusted out. It literally could see the ground through the floorboards. You could have put your foot through it like Flintstones and stopped it. You could have done that. It hardly ran. The top had holes in it. We kind of gave it a push to get it to start. It was a 5-speed. And the guy, he told me there was a mistake in the paper. He actually wanted $700 for it. And I told him, well, I only got $500. He says, well, I'm not budgeting. He says, it's worth $700. And I said, I got $500 right here. He says, no, $700. And I really thought that God wanted me to have that Austin Healey Mini so I could drive to college every day in it. Now let me ask you, do you think, remember I was young, have mercy on me now, do you think that would have been a great choice for me?
No.
Was that what a young college guy needs to get to school and back for like, going to be 3 years? I lived in SeaTac, I had to drive to Kirkland, so it was a good 40-minute every day one way. I thought it was. I prayed, I believed, I called on God. I used to listen to R.W. Shambach on the radio, and he was a tent revivalist. And I used to listen to him, and he'd talk about the 5 steps to claiming what you want, those kinds of sermons. And I claimed that Austin Healey. I believed for that Austin Healey. You know, I remember telling my dad about it, and my dad, he just looked at me and says, What did you say about the floorboards? I say, but I believe. He goes, does it start? Well, you push. Is it good in the rain? Well, no, we can take over those holes. And so I prayed and believed, call upon the Lord. Next day I called him back. So I thought, you know what, God will have spoken to him, and my $500 will be enough. You guys ever been there? You're looking pretty self-righteous right now. But you know what I'm talking about, right? So I called him back, and I said, hey, this is Russ. You know, I was out there looking at your car, and I just thought I'd check in with you. I still got that $500. He goes, no. No. And I said, it's good for you today. No. $700. And so I hung up, and I was disappointed. So I went back to my Kenneth Copeland tapes, you know, and I was like, okay, how do I claim and get this thing, you know? And I prayed some more, called the next day. Again, I said, hey, this is Russ. He goes, I know. And I said, you know, I still got that $500. I need that little Austin Mini to get to college and back. And I just really think you should sell it to me for $500. You know what he said? No. No. And I was disappointed. And he added, please don't call me anymore. You know, so he was locked into $700. That was his deal. So all I had was $500. And you know, I thought God had let me down. Right, Norman? I thought God had let me down. You know, doesn't he know the kind of car I need? And I need that car. By faith, you know. And I was depressed. I was bummed out, you know. But I had to go find a car. I mean, I had to do something. So I went looking some more. And I came across 1965 Volkswagen Beetle. It had been brush painted. You could see the little streaks or somebody had painted bright red. But it had an almost new motor in it. Good tires. And it was as ugly as you can believe. You remember those Volkswagen Beetles? Some of you guys remember how they had that kind of a funny shaped hood that kind of went down and it kind of latched at the bottom. The gas tank was in the front. You think about a dumb idea, right? They had the gas tank in the front on those cars. It wouldn't latch. So you had the bungee cord, the hood down, and air would blow up through there. But he wanted $500, and I needed something. So I bought that Volkswagen. And I remember driving it home. You know, those things sound ridiculous, those Volkswagens. Some of you can remember. 6-volt, it had no headlights. The windshield wipers would do this. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just ridiculous.
But the heater worked good.
Yeah, I thought, my goodness, God, what are stuck with this beat-up old red Volkswagen? But here's the thing, and it was not a convertible. And pulling up to campus and that was not the same look as I was looking for. But let me tell you something. That ridiculous 65 6-volt Volkswagen ran for over 3 years. Back and forth to school every single day. You know, even when I was reaching out and wiping windows with my hand, you know, it still got me there. And if I had picked the car I had wanted, it probably wouldn't have lasted a week, right? I mean, honestly, right? And that Volkswagen went that far. And all of that just to say this, God's ways are better than our ways. And we can believe and have faith, and sometimes we miss it, you know? We think we've got it figured out, but we really don't. And God has a much better plan for you. Much different road you're going to walk than you even knew about. I follow what I'm saying? And part of faith is submitting to God's revealed will. I mean, he revealed pretty clear I wasn't supposed to have that Austin Healey Mini. I said, no. So I submitted, went and bought the Volkswagen. It worked out pretty good. I forgot to add that Volkswagen had one very, very cool feature. Somebody had taken a boat can holder, you know, the kind of swivel on a boat. You put a can in there and it'd swivel, and they had drilled it into the dash so I could put a Coke can in there and drive down the road. It would swivel. It was actually pretty cool. It was a primitive cup holder, you know. Church, Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. My faith for that Austin Healey, it hadn't failed. It was just misplaced. Because God's will always trumps our will. Right? Thankfully. Thankfully it does. Thankfully it does. But here's the thing. God's will in helping us to walk through faith through life isn't contingent upon our comfort and our desires. See, that's the lesson I learned back then. And I mentioned, Kenneth Copeland and a couple of these guys. Because I was listening to them, and I somehow got the idea that God was like a Santa Claus, and faith was like writing him a letter. And I could get anything I wanted, just by saying the right words. But that's not how faith works. Faith is understanding God's will and walking in that. Step by step by step by step. Now sometimes it's dark and you don't know where to go, and you say, I don't know if I should go forward, but you listen for the voice of God. Saying, walk this way. Come over here. And his voice leads us through the dark times. So what's that tell us? Church, it tells us we seek Jesus. In the dark times, in the difficult times, when faith seems lost, when it seems like nowhere to go, you don't seek the answer. Seek the one who can give you the answer. It's Jesus. I follow? Jesus is not just a way to get what you want. You seek Jesus because he is your answer. And it all comes from him. I follow? That's what faith is all about.